Hi guys. Okay, so you know that I wasn't happy with the moss on the rock faces. Behind the scenes, I've spent many hours researching how to actually fix it, and it even got to the point where I was on the fence if I was wanting to continue with this build, as I lost all confidence in my skills. Well, after my chat with James Hilton last week, and if you missed it, the video's available on my channel now, I decided to look at it from a different angle, more artistic than architect. Oh, that, and suggestions from fellow railway modelers. Anyway, let's have another go at this baby. I just need to get this wagon kit out the way before I make a start. Don't worry about that one there just now, you'll see me building it soon enough. Okay, so the first thing I took on board from feedback from a number of modelers is that the colour tones on the scenics are all wrong. To see to that, I'm lightly spraying my old friend Earth Brown over the already late scenics from the last video. This actually made quite a bit of difference. It's funny how such a simple thing can make such a large difference to the layout's feel. And it's cheaper than buying new lighting, which was another suggestion. Personally, I think my lighting is okay. It's actually daylight, but sometimes my phone adjusts the photos so it appears much warmer. Now the tones are on point, I need to huddle all my personalities in and combine forces to actually have a go at redoing the moss on the rocks. Which should definitely be the name of a cocktail. Moss on the rocks. I couldn't find a material that looked correct, so I needed to make my own. I think the main issue with that clump stuff that I used in the last video that sent me down a downward spiral was that the clumps were just so large that it was never going to look good, or convincing as moss. So what I've come up with is a messy mix of Mod Podge and a very fine flock. When mixed together you get a kind of fluffy paste. This can get smudged or wiped onto the rock face. The Mod Podge will glue the mix itself onto the rocks, which means you can fiddle around with the shape. That gave the texture I was looking for. So all I needed to sort now is the colouring, because the standard colour this stuff comes in is far from anything natural. Looking at the photos of moss in late October to early November time, which is when the layout's set, it's still kind of green, but obviously losing its saturation, particularly in the shadows. So I decided to start with the lower colours and work up. Anyway, you'll hopefully make out that I go in with three main colours. Earth brown is the dying bits, which is mostly at the bottom of each clump of moss. Then the main colour is a lovely mossy slimy green that I've used on other parts of the project. This colour is heaps good and I can completely see it being one of my favourite paints ever, alongside earth brown, poster school paint black, and light antique white. The final colour getting sprayed on the tippity tips is sandy yellow. This is going on really light and just to highlight the clump. And with that, the moss looks mossy. The issue with all this new excitement is that there's so much overspray on the rock face around the moss clumps. Originally I thought this would just add to the finish, but really it just looks a mess. So I'll touch up the rocks by hand. It's only a basic mix of greys, but seems to act like a little highlight on the already painted rock surface, which is good. Mental health update. At this point in the project I'm starting to see how I can swerve this back into the right direction, and as such I'm feeling a lot better about it. Not particularly happy, but enough to build up a bit of enthusiasm to pursue the project. Oh, and you may have also noticed ferns in this shot. Ignore those, we'll get to the ferns in a minute. But instead, concentrate how I'm having to spend all evening painting rocks that I've already painted. Saying that, I have just spent days making moss to cover moss that I've already made. Seems to be a thing that I have these days. Ah yes, ferns. So ferns are a funny one. They're everywhere around Welsh railways, but you rarely see them on layouts. I did buy some laser cut paper ferns to make up. You get a couple in a pack, which cost about £5. The other option is my natural method that you saw me use on corris on the riverbanks. This is a moss that grows around Wales, and possibly other places that I don't go to. I picked this particular piece at Lake Vyrnwy about 10 years ago. I don't want it alive. Unalive is ideal. The individual fronds need splitting down into even more smaller pieces. Now these just need to get planted to look like some sort of fern. PVA is fine for this, and you can either dip the tip of the fronds in some, or, like you can see I'm doing here, you can add a blob of glue on the layout and plant the fronds into that. I do both methods, depending on if I remember to add a blob on the layout or not. And remember, PVA will dry clear, so don't worry about the glaring white. It's now a case of planting the fronds in some sort of fern shape. And like the moss, I've got the look, but not the colour. And like the moss, remember this point of year, Welsh ferns are alive, but very much in the 11th hour of their life. So whilst the yellow suits the tips, the middle of the fern needs to be green. And like the moss, the airbrush is used for the job. I'm spraying green in the middle of the fern, trying to keep a bit of yellow on the tips. I've added ferns all the way along the track side, so I now want to add more greenery to the rock face. When I get to the scenery on the bank above it, some will spill over onto the rock face, but for now I want to add something. This will be done in the same way as the lower greenery. So in comes my trusty polyfibre that I use for a base for pretty much any scale scenery. It needs to be teased out really thin here, as I'm only looking to use it as fine strands on which I can add the leaves to. I've also really got into using hairspray to attach the stuff. I was explaining to a friend why I do this, and this is why I do this. I used to use spray glue, but it's so intense in that it's super sticky. Way too sticky for such fine scenics. It also sprays really fast and in a concentrated area, so it's hard to cover areas like this. Hairspray, on the other hand, sprays as a mist, and whilst it's not very sticky, it's got enough for delicate little leaves. It also smells nice. So with a spray of hair spray, the leaf material is added. I want to add some distinctive bushes as well, which look like brambles or something. So whilst I'm using polyfibre as before, I sprayed these clumps with a dark brown to get a more woody look. These then get another waft of hairspray before going in with leaves again. Though this time I'm using a darker green, and no autumn colours. Because, in my reference photos, these plants look like they're very much alive. And because I'm on a bit of a run with the plant stuff, I'm adding some random tufts of thicker grass. I don't know why. It might be because I've had it in my cupboard for years and I wanted to finally use it. The colours will once again get toned down with earth brown like at the start of the video, as it sticks out a bit at the moment. I'll also probably end up giving it a haircut because when the trains run on the layout I can see these grasses getting in the way. Also, I know a few of you panic when you see me cutting with a hobby knife towards me, and now I have a plaster on my finger. The injury is a result of moving glass, not train related. And yes, I opted for the Ladybird. It was that or a giraffe, and I don't like them because I don't like their tongues. So there we go. It seems like quite a short update this week, but it's a massive breakthrough for me. And looking at the scenics in this shot, I'm super happy with how it's looking now. There's lots of variation to the textures and the colours are really nice. Almost not quite healthy shade, which is ideal for the time of year. Since doing this scenery, I've cleaned off the track and vacuumed, not hoovered because that's a brand. And as you can see, it still runs. So I thought we've earned a little treat. Let's enjoy trains running without me waffling on. Hi, me again. You may have noticed that number 4 is running in these last videos. I haven't actually run number 4 until just now, so this was really fun to film. And it gives a good idea of how trains will look when the build's complete, as this last video shows a full-length TR train. Looks good, doesn't it? Yes, it does. So thanks for watching, and thanks for believing in me, even when I didn't. I've got my confidence back now with these scenics, and I'm ready to plough on through to the end. Let's do it. Together. No, not right now, I've got chickens to feed. We'll do it some other time, like next Friday at 7 o'clock GMT. Cheers.